The ancient dragon awoke, eyes burning through the dark, as the human girl spoke in a lost tongue. "You speak the old fire?" It growled. What happened next defied everything they believed. But first, let's go back to the beginning. No one took Lucy Bennett seriously the moment she stepped into the vaulted obsidian halls of the Academy of Fireborn Diplomacy. The ceiling arched like the ribs of some long-dead leviathan, ribbed with veins of smoldering crystal that pulsed like a heartbeat. She stood in the entry rotunda like a dropped quill on an ancient war map, fragile, quiet, forgettable. To the gathered dignitaries and drake tamers, she was a curiosity at best, a mistake at worst. Just 16. Human, uninvited by merit, appointed by quota. She wore no robes of flame silk like the other initiates. Her outfit was earth-stitched, faded jeans, a practical canvas satchel slung over one shoulder, and a thin navy sweater patched at the elbows. Her hair was tightly braided, her posture straight with effort, her expression unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. What unnerved them most, however, was not her attire or her youth, but the way her eyes moved when the dragon stirred, slowly, gently, as though seeing something they had forgotten to look for. "That earthling girl thinks she can teach dragons peace," scoffed Commander Thalor, whose bronze scales reflected the torchlight like a broken mirror. His voice raked across the hall, each syllable sharp as a talon. Others joined in. First a low rumble, then a chorus. Dismissal disguised as mirth. Lucy didn't react. Not when they chuckled behind folded wings. Not when her translated manuscript on semantic flame pattern resonance was rejected without review. Not even when the scrolls she'd painstakingly copied from the crumbling vaults of old Boston were returned with dragon spittle staining the ink. She swept the stables clean every morning before sunrise. She memorized the minor dialects of 8 fire clans by ear alone, eavesdropping during feedings. She catalogued vocal tremors when dragons dreamed, mapping cadence to emotion. No one asked, no one cared. But Lucy kept listening. What they didn't know, couldn't know, was that she was the last of the Bennett line, the daughter of ambassadors charred alive in the Black Summit massacre. She had watched from beneath a collapsed column as her mother screamed the wrong phrase in the wrong dialect and was answered with fire. She never forgot the mistake, or the sound, or the silence that followed. They thought she was weak because she was quiet. But Lucy had learned the oldest lesson fire could teach. Burning makes things clearer. And she would wait until someone finally heard her voice in the flame. The echo caves lay beneath the academy like the forgotten marrow of a dead world, hollow, vast, and carved by time and flame. Their walls shimmered with ancient frostfire residue, glowing faintly blue in the dark, as though the dragon's dreams had left behind ghosts of their breath. Lucy's footsteps echoed in rhythmic solitude, the click of her boots barely a murmur compared to the breathing that filled the chamber, deep, rumbling, and ancient beyond memory. She didn't come to disturb. She came to listen. Veramith the Coldfire lay coiled at the heart of the cavern, his scales like fractured glacier stone, each one larger than a cathedral bell. His breath came slow, vaporous plumes drifting from his nostrils and freezing in the air. His eyelids, half-crusted with slumber ice, did not twitch as she approached. Lucy lowered herself to the stone floor, her satchel pressed to her chest, and closed her eyes. She whispered 3 words. The reaction was instant. A sound like cracking bone reverberated through the chamber. One of Veramith's eyes opened. A sphere of molten sapphire ringed with gold. The light within it pulsed, ancient recognition unfurling behind the iris. He did not roar. He did not rise. He listened. "You speak the old fire?" His voice was a rumble layered with frost and thunder, vibrating the walls and the air in her lungs. Lucy's voice quavered but did not break. "I speak the truth your soul remembers." What passed between them then was not conversation. It was communion. The silence afterward was dense and holy, not even broken by the slow breathing of the other slumbering dragons. When she finally left, hours later, she did not look back. The next morning, the academy writhed with whispers. Dragons stirred in their keeps, muttering guttural syllables that hadn't been heard aloud since before the sundering. Clerics fainted upon hearing their meaning. Apprentices stumbled through corridors, recounting sightings of scaled titans speaking in riddles no one could translate. The council convened in haste. Its air, normally choked with incense and protocol, was now brittle with fear. Sarissa's silver robe shimmered like a blade's edge as she rose. The first tongue is sealed for a reason. If she speaks it, she may unlock bindings older than our walls. Commander Thalor slammed a clawed hand against the granite table. This is no gift. It's a threat. The old fire was war incarnate. They reached consensus not with debate, but with dread. Lucy was summoned under the guise of diplomacy. She was met with accusation, not inquiry. "Leave Eldworm," the decree read, "before the moon next drinks from the southern ridge. Speak no further to the dragons. Let the dead language die." She accepted the sentence without a word. But as she stepped into the wind-blasted courtyard that night, her breath caught. Far beyond the academy, past the veil of mist, came the low, unmistakable call of an ancient war horn, its pitch black and sorrowful. The black cloaks were stirring again, and the silence of dragons had never been more dangerous. The caverns breathed as if alive, pulsing with the deep slumber of ancient flame. Stone ribs arched overhead like the remains of a buried god, glittering with the traces of fossilized breath, amber veins, crystalline soot, and echoes of voices long turned to ash. Lucy moved through the dark like a trespasser in a forgotten temple, her footsteps soundless but her heart deafening. Her exile was set. The decree had been read. But something deeper than fear had taken root inside her, an inheritance too old to ignore. Veramith waited in the chamber of convergence, his form coiled in quiet expectancy. Yet tonight he was not alone. 6 others had joined him, colossi of wing, horn, and ember-rippled scale. Each bore the wounds of time itself. Claws dulled by centuries, wings torn and mended with fire-threaded scar tissue, eyes that had watched empires bloom and burn. They stood in a solemn ring, their immense bodies forming a circle not of dominance, but of listening. One among them stepped forward, her scales like molten glass cooling mid-flow, a single horn twisted like petrified lightning above her brow. Her voice was soft, but each word struck the stone with ceremonial finality. "Child, you are the voice our flame forgot. Speak." Lucy's knees gave way, not in fear, but in reverence. Soot streaked her face, black and red where tears had carved paths through the ash of rejection. She unfastened her satchel, but did not reach for any scrolls. What needed to be said could not be read. She inhaled and began to sing. Not in Earth's tongue, not in the stilted, broken dialect taught to initiates. She sang in Drake's song, the oldest language, the tongue of flame and truth. Her voice started as a whisper, but it resonated through the chamber like a tuning fork struck against the spine of the world. The syllables held pain that had no homeland, memory that had no tomb, rage that had been passed from mother to daughter like a birthright, and hope, fragile as kindling yet fed by breath and belief. The dragons wept, not with sorrow, with recognition. Golden light poured from the walls as if the stone itself remembered the harmony. One dragon's chest cracked open with a roar that was half sob, half war cry. Another fell to their knees, pressing a claw to the ground in solemn oath. And then the sky groaned. The walls of the cavern trembled. Above them, high in the storm-dark firmament, jagged shapes tore through the clouds. Black cloak airships, hulking masses of riveted steel and rune-bound harpoons. From their bellies fell fire, not the living flame of dragons, but mechanical death, spears of smoke and thunder, forged to kill the old blood. The council's sanctuary shattered first, their towers fell like snapped bones, and still Lucy stood. Still, she sang. The dragons rose, not by order, not by fear. For her. She mounted Veramith, his back the width of a boulevard, his scales already glowing with ancestral heat. As they lifted into the burning night, her voice cut through the screams and flame. "They laughed," she whispered, eyes locked on the descending storm. "But they forgot who taught dragons their names." She raised her hand. "Fly to truth." The words ignited the wind. Across the realm, dragons stirred in their hollows, in their stone-cradled sleep. Their dreams turned to memory. Their memory turned to fire, and fire remembered her. The tower was gone. Its spires, once carved with runes of dominion and diplomacy, lay shattered, stones smoldering in the faint orange glow of a dawn that did not yet dare to warm the land. The battle had lasted hours, maybe less, yet the air still hung heavy with the scent of scorched iron and bloodless ash. What remained of the Black Cloak fleet was now nothing more than twisted wreckage scattered across the valley floor. Metal husks torn apart by talons older than nations, burned through by breath forged in the first flame. Lucy stood atop the broken crown of the central tower, its highest surviving ledge still clinging to the morning wind. Her hands were wrapped in makeshift cloth, the skin beneath blistered and raw from gripping Veramith's reins without gauntlets. Her throat was scraped to near silence from chanting through firestorms. Her hair, once neatly braided, now hung in scorched strands against her cheeks, windswept and stinking faintly of ozone. But her eyes blazed brighter than dragonfire. They were not the eyes of a child, nor even of a soldier. They were the eyes of someone who had climbed the mountain of humiliation, crossed the valley of silence, and returned carrying the tongue of gods. Below her, the courtyard swelled with silence. Council members, survivors, mages, and keepers, all of them stood in disarray. Their armor cracked, their robes torn, their titles meaningless. One by one, they knelt, not because they were ordered, because they had seen what fire bows to. Even Thalor, whose pride had once filled halls with derision, now stood bare-chested, scales dulled and dented, his banner discarded in the dirt. He lowered his head. "Forgive me," he said, voice nearly inaudible beneath the crackling wind. Lucy said nothing. It was Veramith who stepped forward, his wings folding in a gesture older than peace. "She will not forgive," he said, his voice a bell tolling across eternity. "But she will lead." No parchment was signed, no council resolution passed. And yet, in that moment, something deeper than politics was forged. A new covenant, born not of diplomacy, but of flame, not maintained by fear, but memory. From that day forward, they called her the Ember Speaker, the girl who woke the fire and gave it reason, the one who reminded dragons that names are not just given. They are earned, and hers would never be forgotten again.